Well, WWE's new deal with Raw and Netflix has been talked about a lot.
We worked with two different movie releases. One had The Rock in it. The other had another superstar within WWE, and the ability for us to take that content and merge it within our storyline, which is somewhat coveted at WWE.
So what inspired the decision to have TNA and WWE crossover?
Yeah, I think the opportunity was that the fans really wanted it. I think what you're seeing now is wrestling become more of what do the fans want to see and hear, and try to do the best to try to bring that to the fan base. People consistently talk about those characters, whether it's Hulk Hogan or it's George the Animal Steel or Andre the Giant, or all the way to the present day with John Cena and Roman Reigns.
What do you think is exciting about WWE in regards to, from a brand's perspective?
The crowd was able to push the results where Daniel Bryan was able to be a world champion because of the crowd and the social media that got behind him to root him forward to becoming that top leader of WWE at that time.
Hey everyone, welcome to Essentially Sports Think Tank. Today we have a special guest, Rob Kligman. Rob has worked with multi-billion-dollar brands in collaboration in sports throughout his career at Sports Illustrated, USA Today, and WWE. He's currently the Chief Revenue Officer of Anthem Sports Group. Rob, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Trey, for having me. I'm looking forward to being with you and answer some great questions.
Absolutely. So what brought you over to Anthem?
So the opportunity to revisit being around a wrestling organization was something that was really interesting to me. I was also looking for a property that was looking for growth. I think this day and age, there's a lot of consolidation. And for me, the opportunity to, one, be within wrestling, which is where I spent 8 years of my career and really flourished from a career perspective, and the opportunity to also get into a female area where I'll be working with Invicta Fighting Championships, which is an all-female mixed martial arts promotion. The opportunity to be within something that, as we're talking about, the Caitlin Clark effect, which is really pushing female athletes in sports to the next level, has given me a chance to, one, be in mixed martial arts, but also to be within an area that's truly growing. So for me, the combination of the both has made it a really appealing opportunity. Secondly, the entertainment umbrella over Anthem Sports and Entertainment also has television, fighting network, and multiple other areas from a distribution perspective. So to summarize it, there's an opportunity for growth. There's a great familiarity with wrestling. There's an opportunity from a female perspective to truly get into something that is extremely hot right now. And then the opportunity from a distribution, we have it and then we can grow it.
Well, the explosion in women's sports has been really amazing. I know there's been a buildup, but this year's been incredible. You said the Caitlin Clark effect. We came from the same industry. We actually just launched this magazine not long ago, Rise of Women's Sports. So you and I have to collaborate on the next issue of this. I know you have a background in that legacy media, but no question, it's really been amazing to see what's happening, and hopefully, the Olympics will be huge for women's sports as well, and just keep that momentum moving forward.
I think so. I think we're going to see it. There's some great personalities, and I think it's just even more than just being great athletes. They have great personalities, and what I can take away from being in the wrestling realm is that personalities and athleticness really helps and allows you to really propel to the top.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, WWE's new deal with Raw and Netflix has been talked about a lot. Curious if you had a hand in that, and then overall, what do you see the future of wrestling on OTT look like?
So from a perspective of Netflix, before I left, we were able to break the first Netflix programming deal with regards to advertising and sponsorship. We worked with two different movie releases. One had The Rock in it. The other had another superstar within WWE, and the ability for us to take that content and merge it within our storyline, which is somewhat coveted at WWE, allowed us to really become familiar with some of the powers to be at Netflix. And it allowed us to truly see, and I think for them to see, the power of sponsorship across WWE. So those were two big accolades that I like to say I take credit for, because we were able to bring it forth. And I think it gave a great introduction to what the power of WWE could be, which then transcended into the big partnership with them that's going to be a multi-billion-dollar deal that allows it to be streamed across Netflix and to a brand new audience, both domestically and internationally over time. The process for OTT, it's it's a big distribution area, and that's something that we're looking for from an Anthem Sports Group perspective as we look at TNA, which is Total Nonstop Action, which is our wrestling deal. And for that, it's right now on a lot of fast channels. So OTT has given us an outlet that, back 15, 20 years ago wouldn't have been around. So I think the power of OTT is still going to be there. I think the simplicity of OTT is important, especially for opportunities that have content. And we are content, and I still think content is king. So for us, I think OTT is not going to be the end factor. I think we're going to look for a distribution deal that's going to be both OTT based, but also broadcast based to give us the largest audience possible. But I don't think OTT is going anywhere. I think it's just going to continue to grow. And I think people want to reach their content where they're going to consume it. And that's a phone, that's a tablet, that could be a console from a gaming perspective. So I think all these companies need to really be on top of their game from an OTT perspective to make sure that they're streaming it in the places that their consumers are going to watch it.
Yeah, no question. I totally agree with you. Why do you think, or what do you think is exciting about WWE in regards to, from a brand's perspective? Why do brands want to get involved?
There's a historical perspective of WWE. It goes back years and years, and I like to say that Vince McMahon is somewhat of a visionary. He's like George Lucas. He's like Steven Spielberg. He's created characters that generations speak about, whether it's Hulk Hogan or it's George the Animal Steel or Andre the Giant, or all the way to the present day with John Cena and Roman Reigns. People consistently talk about those characters, and WWE has a power of 35, 40 years of historical characters that they've created that when you talk about them or you talk about the events that they've appeared in, there's something that resonates with that person, whether it be taking your son to a match and an event for the first time, or it's a birthday that you've gone, or it's just seeing The Undertaker lose in WrestleMania 30 that makes everybody put a smile on your face and recall that amazing memory that they watched that they couldn't believe. So it's a lot of memories. It's also live sports, and I think people enjoy seeing that live action, and it's scripted, but you just don't know what's going to happen. And a lot of times we saw it with Daniel Bryan where the crowd was able to push the results, where Daniel Bryan was able to be a world champion because of the crowd and the social media that got behind him to root him forward to becoming that top leader of WWE at that time.
Yeah, well, I've got a 7-year-old little boy, and the other day he and I have to do this stop motion video stuff, and so we just created a wrestling one.
That's awesome.
Maybe we could stream that with you. But anyway, I'm sure I'll be headed to some wrestling matches here pretty soon. So he's excited. I told him that I was supposed to meet Hulk Hogan the other day, and he was pretty thrilled. So it's amazing. You said 30, 40 years of history, how those names still resonate. Even the older ones. So super cool. We're seeing some big names coming to TNA like the Hardy Boys. What happens when those type of individuals come in? I mean, what type of deals do you expect, and what kind of excitement does that create?
Yeah, it's a lot of excitement because you start to see the parallels between WWE and TNA. And if you remember, TNA's been around for quite some time. So the legacies of Hulk Hogan's and Sting and a really big amount of stars have gone through that network. But as you mentioned, you're starting to see Dolph Ziggler, and you're starting to see the Hardy Boys. You're starting to see those really familiar names come back into the circuit of TNA. So as we prosper more as a company, you're going to see a lot more talent bounce back and forth, and they see it as a proving ground, and they see it as a place that has a lot of memories and a lot of opportunities with a lot of crossover with the fan base. And we're also currently doing a little deal with WWE at the moment where some of their talent is coming down to TNA. Some of our TNA talent is going up to NXT and WWE's main roster, and you're seeing that blend. And I think what the big takeaway is, fans want to watch wrestling. They don't really care if it's AEW, TNA, or WWE. They want to see the familiar names and some of the up-and-coming names, and that's what they're looking for. And that's why I think there's so much opportunity with TNA to become a real force within the wrestling realm. And I think that's because, again, people want to see great wrestling. And just like what WWE has been doing, we're bringing in some amazing talent. We're growing some amazing talent. And the opportunity for fans to find that content where they live and where they're going to be and enjoy it is exactly what wrestling fans are looking for.
It's I grew up in the state of Texas, really never left, and clearly the Von Erichs were a huge impact growing up. I saw I saw Iron Claw the other day with my family. I forgot how tragic that family, really is.
Yes.
But does a movie like that overall, help? Do you see the major motion pictures more in the future? Does that help the overall sport?
I do think so. I think it helps when the personalities find their way into movies. I think when there's movies about wrestling, I think it's great. I think when you start to understand what these wrestlers did, whether they're short documentaries, when they did it during their heyday, the most amazing part is back when a lot of these superstars and wrestlers were growing up and in the ranks of WWE and other organizations, whether it be independent or not, they were living their persona in the ring and outside the ring, which to me is an amazing thing to think about because they never left their persona. And that's why they were so great while they were in the ring and doing interviews and doing something backstage, because they lived that life. You look at Ric Flair never changed. He's always been that character. And that was the fun part about being around those superstars, even The Undertaker. For many, many years, we could never do something with The Undertaker from an advertising and sponsorship perspective until we were able to do something with an energy drink company where we actually had him work with another talent in the energy space and in the gaming space, and we brought the two worlds together. But before, you're coveted in that persona and you never change. And Vince McMahon never wanted to dilute that persona in the case of The Undertaker. So for me, the opportunity to have been able to work with The Undertaker in that way is something that not many people ever got the chance to do in their career. But I love the fact that they were able to live in that character, both on camera and off camera. And to me, that just was the icing on the cake because it was their life and they truly lived it.
Well, I love The Undertaker. If you hadn't noticed, I'm a big Longhorn here, always representing, and he's a big advocate of the team, and
yes,
and it's always fun to see him around the squad. So what inspired the decision to have TNA and WWE crossover?
Yeah, I think the opportunity was that the fans really wanted it, and I talked a little bit about how Daniel Bryan became that world champion, and it was the fans behind it. I think what you're seeing now is wrestling become more of what do the fans want to see and hear, and try to do the best to try to bring that to the fan base. And we see an opportunity where the mergers could happen. There's conversations within superstars about trying to get the action of TNA into the 2K video game. And that's kind of the buzz you're hearing within the social media sphere, is that fans want to see it. They love it. There's not this sort of barricade between the two brands anymore. It's the opportunity to bring what fans want to see. And in this case, we're having a great time bringing our talent up, bringing their talent to our level, and seeing it both prosper on both levels.
So when you think, anytime you have a merger of any organizations, I guess there's strengths from each side. If you had to say what the WWE brings versus what TNA brings to that merger, what would you say is the biggest strength of each organization?
So we both have historical realms behind each brand. The brands both can speak for themselves and stand for themselves. Right now, the difference really is the distribution mechanism that WWE uses to push their content out versus what TNA does. Right now, we're focusing on getting that distribution even larger than it is for TNA, but that's the big differentiation point. The production is the same quality and the content is the same quality. The difference is the distribution. So that's one of the big reasons why I came on board, was to help the distribution, work with our team internally at TNA, and lock in an opportunity for the fans to see it worldwide. And that's our ultimate goal. But right now, that's where we see the differentiation point between World Wrestling Entertainment and TNA. It's simply distribution. Because when you look at the content, the production, like I said earlier, is spot on, and the content and the characters are spot on. So once we get that distribution deal, I think you're going to see a little bit more of an even keel between both organizations.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt in any business, distribution is certainly a key component.
We both know that.
Yeah, for sure. So, tell me about, when you have stars like Joe Hendry's popularity increasing, what does that do for the business?
I can say it pretty easily. It's we believe, right? We believe in Joe Hendry, but we believe in the business. And I think that's where you're seeing the correlation. You're bringing up great stars and great talent, and it makes us start to believe even further that this is a real business that has a lot of legs and a lot of fan base behind it. And you just change a couple different things and all of a sudden it's a mega property. And that's what wakes me up every morning and gets me excited and gets everybody else within this organization excited, including the talent. We're not far away and it's close.
Will you guys be doing something together at WrestleMania next year?
That I don't know yet. I think, again, the way I look at the organization and how I look at building a business is it's crawl, walk, run. It's taking those small steps and doing them really right the first time, and then mature and get to the second step and get to the third step. That's an ultimate goal, and that would be amazing. I think there's an opportunity for potentially maybe doing events in the same weekend, finding a way to do something where we parallel the opportunity of fans to gather around and see content where they want to see it at their time. And that could be an event weekend that parallels TNA and WWE at some point. You just never know. But obviously WrestleMania is the ultimate. There is no such thing that's even bigger than that. But I think the opportunity that could exist to be part of WrestleMania would be an ultimate goal.
So in any type of merger, there's always some sort of obstacle or challenges. When you guys were, when this thing was coming together, what were some of the major challenges you faced?
From a perspective of partnership with WWE,
Yeah.
I think it's just making sure it works for both organizations. I think you just want to make sure that when you do a partnership that both organizations have the chance and a fair shot at everything that's written into the contract that allows both to grow, both to make revenue, both to prosper, and for talent to both excel on both levels. And we're doing that right now, and we're seeing a lot of chatter within the social spheres, and we see that being a success so far. So as I mentioned, you crawl, walk, run, taking baby steps to try to see what we can do, and then how do we grow from what the success that we've seen so far with the talent exchange and grow from there. And I mentioned the 2K video game. That would be amazing if fans got a chance to put their favorite TNA talent into the video game and play, because that's why they're watching it. That's why they cheer for Joe Hendry, and that's why they're coming in and chanting TNA as much as they're chanting NXT or WWE. That's what they want to hear and see.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to be playing some video games here pretty soon with my 7-year-old. I told him I'll get him a PS5, but I'm not playing Minecraft. We have to play, football and wrestling and all the sports games.
That's awesome. I love it.
The ones I know I can kick his butt in, because it's from playing them 20 or 30 years ago. I assume the buttons are still kind of the same.
I would think so.
So can you share any details on the new leadership structure between the two organizations?
Yeah, from our perspective, TNA, I can tell you that we've got some really positive people within the organization, and positivity leads to success, and team-oriented mindsets leads to success, and that's what I've seen so far, and that's the type of people that we're bringing into this organization. We want to win. We want to win at a level that we know we're capable of winning at, and that to me is what's exciting. I think more than anything, we've all checked our egos at the door if we have any, and we understand that it's a team that will make this a success. And we have the foundation built at TNA and Anthem Sports Group in general. And I think as we work together and we're smart with our steps along the way, that it's going to be a success. From what I can see at WWE, I think there's some great leadership at UFC, and the ability for them to merge the two together will offer up a great entity for both advertiser sponsorships and fans. And I'm excited to see how they use joint services. We've already seen a little bit of differentiation between the advertising and sponsorship mindset. They have Prime now as an advertiser that's in the middle of their canvas, something that we couldn't do previously at WWE, and they've taken advantage of it, and that's obviously coming from the UFC side of sponsorship. So I'm excited to see what they can do from a shared services perspective, but I think they've got some great leadership. I think they're going out with a great opportunity with Netflix, and they see, I think the sky's the limit for what they can do for event weekends, because they can parallel both UFC and WWE together, and they've got some great correlations between talent, where they can bring some talent like the old Ronda Rouseys of the day from UFC over to WWE in a similar fashion, like they did Brock Lesnar as well. So there's a lot of excitement, I think, between that organization and where they're taking it, and the creativity coming from Hunter and Triple H is, from what I've heard, amazing. I think a lot of people love the way he's taking the brand. I think there's an opportunity potentially to maybe do something more on the Attitude Era with where WWE is going to be with Netflix, and potentially do a little bit of a more softer brand style on the cable outlets. But for Netflix, they may have an opportunity to push the limit a little bit, which I think some fans have been interested in seeing a little further.
Have you had any interaction with Triple H yourself? I
have not as of right now.
I'm sure that'll happen. That'll be some interesting discussions, I'm sure. Has this merger had any impact on the branding or identity of TNA?
I think it helps. I think the opportunity for brand familiarity is something that's going to continue moving forward with WWE's partnership. I think the opportunity for us to blend leagues together is only going to make each league stronger, and broaden and strengthen the talent. And wrestling is cyclical. It's a lot about storylines. So if you can build a storyline just from bringing a talent to TNA and taking a talent from TNA and building it to WWE, there's some rivalry that can be built. Everyone's looking for a heel. Everyone's looking for a good superstar. And in this case, you can build it by bringing talent from one place to the other and giving the fan the opportunity to watch that talent where normally they might not have been watching them. And it's all of a sudden an introduction of great talent at a level that they've not seen before.
So Anthem has other ventures besides TNA. I mean, how does TNA fit overall as compared to your other ventures in the organization?
It's, to me, the opportunity of seeing such an amazing brand with great a huge historical library of content. And I mentioned earlier, content is still king. To be able to really build something to a tremendous level. We've got some great opportunities. We have HDNet, which was the former Mark Cuban channel. We have Access, which is where sometimes you can always watch TNA. And we've got a lot of powerhouse music and entertainment areas within the Anthem Sports and Entertainment division. And for us, I think we all see that there's growth opportunities across the board. And I think that, for me, is the most exciting part of being in an organization. Trey, you and I spoke a little bit beforehand about being in the publication business and seeing what Sports Illustrated and other magazines had done. And during my end tenure at a Sports Illustrated or USA Today Sports we were trying to pull back. And that's no fun being in an organization where you're pulling back just to try to save dollars. Here, we're trying to earn dollars. And by doing that, we're within an industry that we know people want to read about, see about, and follow. And for me, that's exciting. I like when there's an opportunity to do a great sponsorship deal and know 100% of those dollars are going right back into the brand. And that's versus paying debt. So for us, everything is going to go back into talent, go back into production, go back into bigger venues. And to me, again, that's building a brand. So for me, at this stage of my career, I've had 25, 30 years of being with a variety of different startups and mature companies. The ability to be at this stage of my career and be within a growth area is truly exciting. And it's a tough economy. It's a tough time to be in media. But for us, it's live sports. The content is there. And I think the company is behind it. And we're utilizing a lot of the resources within the company to help propel TNA to another level.
So, you spoke a lot about brands there. I think one of the things we like to do on podcasts is really talk about some brand partnerships that, we love in different sports. And, I always think about Randy Savage and the Slim Jim. And, I know Ric Flair has had a number of things. I think most recently Blue Energy. And, I think Hulk's launching a beer here pretty soon. And so these wrestlers are clearly always associated with brands and brand launches, but is there any that sticks out to you that has been one of your favorite partnerships between a brand and a wrestler?
Not necessarily a brand or a wrestler, but it's interesting the way I've been looking at things. I again go back to the Fanbase a little bit, and I look at things like what Meta is doing with virtual reality, and I think about how do we create a partnership with virtual reality? How do we give the fan the chance to reach out and touch the mat? How do we give them a chance to feel the action in a way that's never been felt before, even when you're in attendance of an event? So for me, being with Meta and trying to work through virtual reality is really top of mind right now in terms of what's next in the future. And I try to look down the pipeline to see what is next, about 2 or 3 times faster than the next person. From a perspective of working with brands, there's a lot of great brands out there and a lot of great correlations. I think there's opportunities to align a few of them with some of our top talent, and that's going to come. That's going to come through conversations, through the similarities between the talent and their affection and interest in being with that brand. But to your point, there's some great ones. Slim Jim obviously is one of the biggest, and the one you think about with Randy Savage, obviously. But at the same time, I've created after 30 years of never having a sponsor for the biggest event there is, Snickers has become synonymous with WrestleMania. So again, I look at how can brands become synonymous with even something bigger than just the talent. And in that case, it's a real example of it becoming that big with Snickers and WrestleMania. But I'm excited. I think there's great opportunity. I got to tell you again, the meta and the virtual reality to me is going to change the landscape of watching wrestling, and I'm hoping and I'm expecting TNA to be the first ones to do it.
That's awesome. I can totally imagine that. Here's the deal. I got an idea for you here, is augmented reality. I want to sit on the couch with my glasses on next to Randy Savage and watch a football game or watch a wrestling match. I mean, that would be pretty cool. I think it's coming. It's coming someday. I know they've got some pretty cool augmented reality stuff. So the problem with virtual reality is every time I put a virtual reality headset on, my wife shames me. So I figure if I've got glasses on, I'll look a little bit cooler, right?
Yeah.
But
that technology is going to change soon enough as well too. But I see your point.
Yeah, no question about it. Well, I really appreciate you joining us today. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on that we didn't hit today in our conversation?
No, just the opportunity to talk wrestling to me is a great thing. So the opportunity to be on this show, be able to talk to your listeners and be able to expose them to some of the inside workings of what wrestling is all about, the opportunity for Anthem Sports and Entertainment to grow the way it's going to grow, and then the familiarity with TNA. A lot of people have watched it early on in their life, and now to see and hear that we're reinvesting in the brand is something for me. It's really exciting for you guys to give me that platform to be able to voice and speak a little towards. So I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you sharing it all. I definitely learned a lot today, and I know who to call when I'm going to need some backstage passes for sure. But
Trey, anytime, just give me a holler.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm looking forward to meeting in person, hopefully up on the circuit in New York. Like I said, we do a lot of stuff with the Brand Innovators Group, and I run sports over there, and I think you'd really enjoy getting involved in that community and stopping by. So we'll stay in touch, and looking forward to seeing you soon in person.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the time.
Absolutely.